A former senior Trump administration official steps into the spotlight with a bold declaration that immediately captures the attention of both American media and Middle Eastern observers. He is not speaking as a government representative but as a man who had a direct hand in shaping Trump's foreign policy, especially in relation to Israel, Palestine, and the wider Arab world. His tone is sharp, carrying the weight of years spent inside negotiation rooms and security briefings, and his message is clear: Hamas must take the deal or risk catastrophic consequences. He points to the Abraham Accords, the historic agreements signed during Trump's presidency that normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, as proof that strength and leverage can bend even the most unlikely partners toward compromise. According to him, peace was never achieved by soft talk or open-ended discussions, but rather by reminding opponents of the cost of defiance. The statement sets off waves of speculation, with some analysts calling it a return to Trump-era hardball tactics, while others see it as an empty threat without the backing of official authority. The former official invokes memories of past negotiations where resistance groups were pressured into making concessions only when cornered. He emphasizes that Hamas is at a crossroads and that the current situation will not allow indefinite stalling. Either they move toward a structured agreement, or they face the kind of consequences that America has shown itself capable of delivering. The words, "take the deal," ring not only as a piece of advice but as a veiled ultimatum, one that carries echoes of operations that changed the course of conflicts in the region. Commentators draw comparisons between this warning and the Trump administration's previous maximum pressure campaigns on Iran, which combined sanctions with military posturing to force Tehran to recalculate its moves. The idea presented is that Hamas, like other adversaries before it, will only respond when confronted with overwhelming force or the undeniable promise of isolation. As the message circulates, reactions differ sharply. Pro-Israel voices welcome the return of a hard stance, arguing that Hamas respects strength more than compromise and that the only language understood by militant leaders is one of deterrence. On the other hand, critics argue that this kind of rhetoric risks provoking escalation and undermines any fragile channels of communication that might still exist. Nevertheless, the impact is undeniable, and the narrative of an ultimatum begins to dominate coverage of the conflict. The Trump official's appearance is carefully timed, designed to remind all sides that windows of opportunity for peace are limited and that missing one often leads to years of bloodshed. By presenting the message as both a warning and a lesson drawn from the past, he sets the stage for a clash of wills that will unfold in the episodes to come. The next phase of the story takes on a sharper edge as the warning becomes more personal. The Trump official underscores America's record of targeted actions against high-profile figures who were once believed untouchable. He brings up examples of strikes carried out during Trump's tenure, particularly the elimination of notorious commanders whose deaths shifted the balance of power almost overnight. These reminders are not random, they are carefully chosen to weigh on the mind of the Hamas leader. The suggestion is clear: if past adversaries could be located and eliminated, then no one in the current conflict is beyond reach. It is not only a statement of capability but also an implicit threat wrapped in the history of recent American operations. The psychological effect is immediate, sparking heated debates among regional analysts. Some say the message is designed to scare Hamas into reassessing its strategies, while others warn that humiliation and public threats might only strengthen the group's resolve to resist. The dual nature of the warning makes it both powerful and dangerous. On one hand, it demonstrates a continuation of the Trump-era philosophy that peace is secured not by gentle persuasion but by demonstrating overwhelming superiority. On the other hand, it risks triggering a cycle of retaliation if taken as a challenge. In regional capitals, the message is dissected with caution. Israeli officials welcome the tone, seeing it as an endorsement of their own firm approach. Meanwhile, Arab mediators worry that such words will close doors to negotiation and inflame already volatile conditions on the ground. International observers remain divided, unsure if the Trump official's warning is a realistic signal of potential policy or simply a personal attempt to influence events from the outside. Yet regardless of its origin, the words echo widely, leaving Hamas in a position where silence might be read as weakness, and defiance could lead to unpredictable escalation. The episode ends with uncertainty, but one truth is established: the confrontation is no longer just political, it has become deeply psychological, with fear and pride battling for dominance in the minds of both sides. The tension deepens as the message from the Trump official reverberates across the region, drawing in governments, analysts, and ordinary citizens who all interpret it through their own lenses. Israel wastes no time in publicly embracing the sentiment, with leaders arguing that this kind of tough language is precisely what deters militant groups from testing the limits of patience. Israeli officials point to years of rocket fire, attacks, and refusals to negotiate as proof that only decisive pressure can alter the calculations of Hamas. They see in the Trump officials' words a continuation of a doctrine that legitimizes strength as the only viable path to peace. For Israel, the return of such rhetoric signals reassurance, almost as though a familiar partner has re-entered the conversation even if he no longer holds office. Across the border, however, Arab nations are far more cautious. Egypt and Qatar, often acting as mediators, worry that escalating threats could unravel the fragile framework of dialogues they have tried to maintain. Their diplomats warn in quiet terms that inflaming Hamas's pride might close the door to compromise entirely. To them, the language of ultimatums is a double-edged sword, one that can compel a breakthrough but can also cement defiance. At the heart of it all is the Hamas leadership, watching closely as narratives build around them. For Hamas, the warning is not merely a political statement but a challenge to their authority and resilience. Pride, honor, and the perception of strength in front of their supporters weigh heavily in their response. To accept the message or even appear to bend under its pressure risks portraying weakness to their base and undermining their claim as defenders of resistance. On the other hand, the implicit threat of overwhelming force is not lost on them. They know the history of U.S. actions against high-profile figures, and they understand the stakes if the message is not heeded. The leadership debates internally, torn between demonstrating steadfastness and considering whether quiet channels of negotiation might secure them a safer position. The episode highlights this clash of philosophies, deterrence by force on one side, defiance through resistance on the other. Each approach carries risks, and both are fueled by a belief that the other will eventually break first. The standoff begins to feel less like a political dispute and more like a psychological battle where narratives, perception, and pride play as large a role as weapons. The uncertainty grows more palpable in the next stage of the story as speculation about possible outcomes intensifies. Observers across the world begin to wonder if Hamas will soften its stance under the weight of the warning or if it will double down in open defiance. The Trump official, seemingly unfazed by the mixed reactions, repeats his point with even greater clarity. He stresses that opportunities for peace are rare, fleeting, and often lost forever when ignored. His tone is unrelenting, insisting that hesitation will only lead to harsher consequences later. To him, history is proof that moments of strength must be seized, otherwise they dissolve into years of bloodshed. Meanwhile, reports begin to emerge from intelligence circles suggesting that intermediaries may already be testing the waters, reaching out quietly to explore whether some form of truce could be negotiated. These whispers are unconfirmed, but they fuel speculation that despite the public defiance, private calculations inside Hamas might be shifting. The possibility that behind-the-scenes talks are unfolding adds another layer of complexity to the story, making it unclear whether the warning has succeeded in its intent or merely accelerated secret negotiations. The world watches the developments with unease, recognizing how thin the line is between progress and disaster. If Hamas chooses to harden its stance, the risk of escalation looms large, potentially dragging the region into another round of violence. If it chooses to test the path of negotiation, it must do so without appearing to bow under external pressure, a delicate balance that may prove nearly impossible. The Trump official's words linger like a shadow over every discussion, reminding both sides of the high stakes involved. Analysts debate endlessly on news programs, some predicting that the warning has cracked Hamas's confidence, others insisting it will only inspire deeper resistance. The closing moments of the story do not provide resolution but rather a sense of suspended tension, leaving the outcome uncertain. The audience is left with the image of a crossroads, where one path leads to the possibility of a deal and the other to inevitable conflict. The cliffhanger emphasizes the fragile nature of such confrontations, where pride, fear, and strategy intertwine in ways that could shape the fate of the region for years to come.